Have you ever looked at the tag on your shirt, the tiny components inside your smartphone, or even just the origin of your morning coffee, and wondered how all of it perfectly orchestrated its way right into your hands? To really grasp international business, it honestly helps to picture the global economy as a massive high-stakes board game. We're talking moving pieces, completely different terrains, super complex rulebooks, and a point system that literally never stops fluctuating. So today in this explainer, we're going to break down the mechanics of this intricate game using some foundational macroeconomic principles. Let's get into it.
Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. First up, the forces driving the global arena. Second, navigating the macro environment. Third, the rules of trade. And finally, number 4, demystifying the exchange market.
But before we even start moving our pieces around the board, what do you think is the primary driver of globalization? I mean, think about what actually powers all of this massive interconnectedness. Is it just government policy, or is it something else entirely?
Section 1. Forces driving the global arena. The push behind the pieces. So the core engine really pushing this whole thing forward is technological advancement. And multinational corporations use that tech to maximize profits across borders. Their go-to strategic move? Foreign direct investment, or FDI. This is basically when they establish subsidiaries in completely new territories. By doing this, or by offshoring to lower-cost locations, companies are strategically placing their pieces all over the globe. They do it to build economies of scale and, of course, to tap into entirely new markets.
And look, the strategies we're exploring here aren't just guesswork. They're grounded directly in structured macroeconomic data. This ensures we're decoding this global game with absolute accuracy. We're relying on the foundational principles, right from the source, to see exactly how international business truly operates beneath the surface.
Moving on to Section 2, navigating the macro environment, building the global board.
You see, a business expanding internationally doesn't just step into a void, it steps into some seriously complex terrains. Actually, there are 4 critical macro environments businesses have to navigate to survive. First up is the cultural environment, stuff like the customs, beliefs, and communication styles of a society. A strategy that works brilliantly in one culture, it might completely bomb in another. Next is the political environment, which really hinges on a government's stability. Basically, political stability acts like a magnet for foreign investment. Then we have the legal environment, the system of laws and regulations ensuring that contracts are actually enforceable. And finally, the economic environment, where we're looking at things like inflation, unemployment, and overall growth.
Now, to keep score of a territory's economic health within that environment, we look at gross domestic product, or GDP. You can think of GDP as the ultimate scoreboard for the total value generated within a country during a specific time frame. If you want to know how strong a specific territory on our global board actually is, well, GDP and GDP per capita are absolutely the very first metrics you're going to evaluate.
All right, Section 3, the rules of trade, referees and rulebooks.
So a game without rules is just chaos, right? Let's look at what governs how these goods actually cross borders. We generally see 2 totally opposing trade philosophies going head-to-head here. On one side, you've got free trade. This is all about efficiency, comparative advantage, and just entirely open borders. But on the exact opposite side, we have protectionism. This is a much more defensive play, restricting imports using mechanisms like tariffs or quotas, specifically to shield your own domestic industries from foreign competition.
And sometimes, players employ some pretty aggressive tactics, like dumping. Dumping is basically selling goods in foreign markets for less than what it actually costs to produce them. It's a move designed to unfairly wipe out local competition. When this happens, countries aren't just going to sit there. They'll often defensively slap on anti-dumping tariffs just to level the playing field and protect their own market share.
To smooth things out and eliminate those tariffs among allies, players will often team up and form these incredibly powerful regional alliances. We're talking about cross-national agreements like NAFTA in North America, the European Union, or ASEAN in Southeast Asia. They create these massive economic unions. Their main goal? To promote integration, facilitate cooperation, and drastically reduce those investment barriers among their members. It's a huge strategic advantage.
But listen, when disputes inevitably arise, and they always do, who makes the final call? Enter the ultimate referee, the World Trade Organization, or WTO. The WTO provides this essential forum for global trade negotiations and deals directly with enforcing the rules of the game. When countries clash over tariffs, dumping, or arbitrary trade barriers, the WTO steps in with critical dispute resolution mechanisms, like arbitration panels, to finally settle the score.
Section 4. Demystifying the exchange market, the points system.
This market is basically the live, 24 hours a day scoreboard for global currencies. So here's something to ponder. When a currency appreciates or depreciates, who or what is actually pulling the levers behind the curtain? Who really determines exchange rates in our modern global economy?
Well, it turns out for the vast majority of the global economy, it's just the invisible hand of market forces. Specifically, we're talking about the forces of supply and demand, driving daily transactions across totally different time zones. It's this absolute constant frenzy of buying and selling that dictates exactly what one currency is worth relative to another.
Now, historically, things were a bit more rigid. We had fixed exchange rates, which were tightly controlled by governments and pegged to specific values, kind of like the US dollar. But today, most major economies use a fluid, floating exchange rate that's determined entirely by the market. It's totally dynamic, constantly adjusting itself based on real-time economic shifts happening all over the world.
So what exactly is influencing all that supply and demand in a floating system?
Well, we see a few main levers at play. First, there's interest rates. Generally speaking, higher rates lead to currency appreciation because they offer better returns to foreign investors. Makes sense, right? Then there's purchasing power parity, which reflects the relative buying power of different currencies. Add to that currency speculation, where traders are actively buying and selling just to profit from the fluctuations themselves. And finally, you still have occasional government intervention, where a central bank might actually step in to stabilize extreme volatility, something we call a managed float.
Wow, okay, we have definitely covered a lot of ground today. We've looked at the technological forces driving globalization, those incredibly complex political and economic boards that businesses have to play on, the intense rules of free trade versus protectionism, and of course, that constantly shifting point system of global currencies. So I want to leave you with one final thought. How do all of these global macro forces, these international referees, and these wildly fluctuating exchange rates actually impact the price of the goods you buy every single day? Next time you make a purchase, just remember, you are literally holding the result of the ultimate global board game right there in your hands. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring.